Hello YouTubers, and welcome to Andrew's Corner. Today, I'm going to talk about two of my favorite attractions from Disney World, the Haunted Mansion and the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. This will be the first in a new series I'm going to be doing on this channel called Versus. Hailing from both the Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, both of these attractions are loved by many parkgoers. Both kids and adults enjoy these rides for different reasons. Some of them like their immersive atmosphere and scary themes. Others may enjoy the animatronics and the ride technology. And I wanted to take a closer look at these elements. Which one has the better theme, story, and ride technology? And I'm going to look at them one category at a time. Let's begin with two categories: Best Pre-Show and Best Story. For those that may not know, Disney takes their rides very seriously. Walt Disney himself wanted his theme park to be very immersive for guests. He wanted them to be transported into the world of the ride's characters, and nowhere else is this more important than in the pre-show. The pre-show has to suck you in, get you invested, give you a little taste of what's to come, and both attractions do not disappoint. The Haunted Mansion's pre-show starts with the show building. The mansion appears as an old German Gothic mansion, which fits the theme of its surrounding land, Liberty Square, as opposed to the Southern Plantation Mansion in Disneyland. Park guests walk through the line in a graveyard where we see humorous headstones and busts of former guests of said mansion, as we hear a howling dog in the background. This is both funny and foreboding, adding to the excitement of the ride. As we enter the mansion, we first enter a room filled with cobwebs, dust, and an old fireplace, where we see a picture of the mansion's Master Gracie, which starts decomposing all of a sudden. Kinda looks like the Crypt Keeper, doesn't he? We then enter adjoining rooms on the sides, surrounded by stone gargoyles looking down on us, and pictures of people. A deep voice speaks to us, introducing himself as the Ghost Host, welcoming us to the mansion. His last known picture here. Look up the voice actor, you'll get it. The room begins to move as if it's stretching, and then the pictures change, revealing pretty funny ways the people are about to die. The ghost host then taunts us, encouraging us to find a way out. Then the lights go out, revealing a dead body above, hanging from a noose! We then hear a scream and a thud. Then the lights go back on again and we continue into the loading process. The brilliance of this pre-show is that despite its foreboding tone with the ghost host speaking, the skeleton picture, and the body hanging from the ceiling, it has a sense of humor. We giggle at the pictures of the people about to die, and with the host's sardonic attitude. It's just delightful. It has sort of a G-rated Evil Dead vibe. Now, the Tower of Terror is a little different. Its pre-show starts with guests in the park walking towards the show building of a massive hotel at 190 feet overlooking the street. It's dark, it's foreboding, it's got lightning marks on the front. We see doors open and close and people screaming inside. We want to learn more about what's going on. So we enter the line and go along a very winding path through overgrown gardens and jazz music from the 1930s playing in the background. It hasn't been tended to for quite some time. Why? We get a little closer to the vine-covered building and enter the lobby, and we see cobwebs, dust, bags, teacups, and old board games left untouched after many, many years. And dilapidated express elevators cracked with a sign that says "out of order." We're then led to wait in the library until our rooms are ready, which is interestingly enough housing a lot of props from the original Twilight Zone series. We hear thunder outside the window, and the TV turns on with the series playing. Through the TV, we learn that 5 people boarded the elevator in 1939, when it was struck by lightning, causing the people to vanish. Did they die? Were they sent to the Twilight Zone? No one knows. The television then turns off, and we're led out of the library and into the boiler room. Now, both buildings draw in crowds with their creepy aesthetics. They're very eye-catching. You want to know more about them. The Haunted Mansion is big and we can tell it has a history to it. But the Tower of Terror has an advantage, not only with its decrepit theme being more subtle, but it is enormous and better for visual storytelling. People have often considered the Tower of Terror to be sort of like a sequel to the Haunted Mansion, due to its similar themes and the latter's greater size. The Haunted Mansion's pre-show is very mysterious, as we're not given a lot of information as to why we're there or what happened to the mansion. We don't know why that mansion is haunted, or why the ghosts are there. We even start wondering if our deaths are on the line. Plus, it has a sense of humor, and while it is creepy, I was never scared when I experienced it. I enjoyed the scares, and I liked how foreboding it was. It was fun. It was a fun kind of scary, kind of like when you read Goosebump books. The Tower of Terror, I believe, has a more engaging pre-show because it's more straightforward. There are various reasons why we're there. We could be naive guests trying to stay at the hotel, or we could be paranormal investigators trying to solve a mystery. And the pre-show tells us what happens, for the most part. It was struck by lightning, but it still keeps the Twilight Zone a mystery, which, in a lot of ways, kind of makes the story a lot more scarier. We know what we're getting ourselves into, while keeping us feeling tense the whole time. Personally, I wanted to know what the backstory was, so I turned to various sources to try to get an idea of what it was. Many cast members said they felt that the Haunted Mansion didn't really have a story. Others made up their own story. One story in particular makes the most sense. The mansion's owner, Master Gracie, was engaged to Emily, but Madame Leota was jealous, and on their wedding day, Leota killed Emily and locked her body in the trunk in the attic. Master Gracie was distraught, and he hung himself, and Leota was left to haunt the mansion after dying of old age. We come along to the mansion and become the 1000th ghost. We enter the house, thinking we see the pictures changing, wondering if our eyes are playing tricks on us or not. Then we see the corpse of Master Gracie. We're scared. We run out of the room, or on our doom buggy, through the hallway and the library. We then enter the room where Madame Leota summons the spirits to haunt the house. We now see the ghosts in the ballroom. We then run into the attic, coming across the ghost of the bride, Emily. Emily attacks you, pushes you out the window. You fall and are killed. The caretaker sees you and shakes with his dog, as we've become the ghost. The other ghosts appear more solid to us, and in this way, the ride is our story becoming the 1000th ghost. Now, as amazing as this theory is, the story is not as obvious in the ride. Like the cast members described, it's a ride to show off the great effects that were new at the time, but are now kind of common knowledge. Point goes to the Tower of Terror. But which one is scarier? The next category is Best Scares. Now, despite having similar concepts, both attractions handle their scares differently. Throughout the Haunted Mansion ride, we have a feeling of foreboding, but there's also a sense of intrigue, excitement, and even laughs. You need to remember that the original Imagineers couldn't agree on whether they should make the ride a straightforward, scary ride, or a funny and lighthearted ride. They eventually decided on doing both, with the first half full of creepy imagery, including scary portraits, busts watching us, pianos playing by themselves, a bunch of stairs from Inception, knocking doors, wallpaper with evil eyes, and a clock with teeth and the number 13. It's almost as if the attraction is bluntly saying, yeah, we're haunted. It's obvious with the approach, and I think it allows guests to not feel as scared. I mean, they have a bat on their weather vane. You can't get more obvious than that. By knowing it's haunted and full of ghosts, parkgoers know what to expect, while still enjoying the creativity, including Madame Leota, the haunted ballroom, the attic, the creepy bride, the graveyard full of kooky ghosts, and the hitchhiking ghosts. Despite its continuous foreboding theme, the ride's sense of humor and obviousness of the scary theme actually works against it in terms of scares. We know we're going to be fine, and a lot more younger kids are able to enjoy the ride as well. On the other hand, Tower of Terror is more intense with its scares. For one, it's a drop ride, and some people who fear heights or falling are going to be uncomfortable. But also the ride is more subtle with its scares. The dilapidated, abandoned theme is not as obvious, but the size adds to the effect. Everything is enormous and spacious, old and rusty. Even the boiler room looks scary. It's like something out of a horror movie. As you enter the ride vehicle, you don't know when you're going to drop, and when you do, you're sitting in complete darkness. You feel like your life is at risk when you're riding this. And let me tell you, many kids have said they're more scared of riding this ride than the Haunted Mansion. Point goes to the Tower of Terror. But another essential to Disney attractions are the cast members. This is Best Cast Members. For me, this is a difficult one, as cast members for both attractions are kind of similar in their approach. The one distinction is the Haunted Mansion cast are dressed as butlers and maids, whereas the Tower of Terrors are dressed as bellhops. And from what I've seen, they are the few attractions where guests want pictures with the cast members. My sources have informed me that, as opposed to other cast members at Disney World, they were told they did not have to smile. And to be fair, I can understand why. While Disney World is one of the happiest places on Earth, it is a difficult job that requires a lot of energy from its employees. I have to imagine it's frustrating being there in those costumes and working under the Florida sun, so it probably isn't hard for them not to smile. Plus, it's fun listening to the cast members believe the actual mansion building is haunted. It doesn't help that the park goers often throw their dead relatives' ashes while riding. Oh yeah, they do that. Unfortunately, cast members are told to suck up any ashes they find sprinkled throughout the ride with vacuums that are secretly hidden throughout the attraction. I was also informed that there's a prop book in the ballroom, including photographs of former cast members who died, and it's kept there as sort of a tribute, as if to say they've already joined the other 999 happy haunts there. That's actually pretty fascinating. They even work around setting up particular props, like the silverware and the plates shaped into a hidden Mickey, but other times it isn't there. I love how some cast members have different approaches, like some are more rebellious while others are strict rule followers. But despite their no smiling approach, they are pretty accommodating to guests, which is very essential for a good ride experience. Now, the Tower of Terror bellhops are often noted to be a little different from the Haunted Mansion cast members, as they seem a little more eccentric. Their costumes also are given more attention, and were reportedly very expensive to make, helping them look a little bit more authentic. In a lot of ways, their performances really stand out and help you remember them more. It's almost like a lot of them are channeling horror icons like Vincent Price, Boris Karloff, maybe a hint of Peter Lorre. They do leave an impression, and their eccentric attitudes really make them funny and memorable. However, you could argue the Haunted Mansion has an advantage as their costumes have more variety. They also look more unique, as the maids have green while the butlers have gray. They can be sardonic, eccentric, grim, spooky, but still approachable. The Tower of Terror cast members can be approachable too, but they look like any bellhop you would see around a typical hotel. Both cast members are good, but I think the more approachable and the variety of cast members from the Haunted Mansion win for this round. Point goes for the Haunted Mansion. But hey, what's a Disney attraction without a good gift shop at the end? We're looking at Best Merchandise. Now, both gift shops at Walt Disney World are well known to park goers and have a lot of great merchandise. Interestingly enough, both gift shops have a lot of Nightmare Before Christmas apparel, which is appropriate as both attractions are scary and rode a lot during the Halloween season. The Haunted Mansion's gift shop, Memento Mori, is located in Liberty Square and is pretty close to the border of Fantasyland. Surprisingly though, it's small, but it features a lot of great mansion merchandise, including plushies, action figures, figurines of scenes from the ride, books, shirts, hats, magnets, purses, bags, pens, keys, busts. They even sell bedsheets and aprons. Some of my favorites are the Haunted Mansion themed game boards and playing cards they sell. The whole store is filled with old jars, vases, and vials and cobwebs etched into the wood shelves, sticking with the haunted theme. You can even get a photograph of yourself and pose to look like you're a ghost. You've died and just become the 1000th ghost. Now give us your money. Now, the Tower of Terror's shop has a 30s Hollywood theme. And one thing I noticed about the gift shop is it kind of has a lot of generic Disney shirts. hats and cups there, like ones with Mickey, Donald, and Goofy at Disney World. However, this store is decorated very nicely, with good carpet. It's surrounded by antiques and old posters of the hotel's high top club, cobwebs in the corner, and steel gates at the entrance. They sell very unique items you don't normally see at the theme parks, like bells, room keys, dresses, robes, towels, shirts, scarves, and bags modeled to resemble hotel luggage. Their shirts and dresses are modeled after the bellhops, and similar to the Haunted Mansion, the Tower of Terror has a Clue board game modeled after it. Now it seems that both would get a tie, but then after reviewing them both, I realized a few key differences between them. The Tower of Terror gift shop is part of the attraction, and it's a lot bigger than Memento Mori. While Memento Mori is still a really nice gift shop with great merchandise, you still have a ways to walk before you get to it, and it's a very small shop, not very spacious, and you can't hold as many people in there like you can with the Tower of Terror gift shop. Plus, a lot of the merchandise reminds me of stuff usually you would find in a hotel. Bed sheets, towels, bells, keys, magnets, and robes, giving it a little bit of an edge. While I do love Memento Mori as a store, the point goes to the Tower of Terror. Since I've talked about both Florida versions, it seems only fair to talk about the ones at Disneyland too. This is Best Disneyland Version. Now, a lot of people are probably going to say that it should obviously be Disneyland's Haunted Mansion because it was the first Haunted Mansion built, whereas the California Adventure's Tower of Terror is the second variation. And while I do agree, I have to acknowledge the pros and cons of both of these doppelgangers. Personally, I always preferred the look of the Florida version over the Californian version of the Haunted Mansion. Not just because I wrote it so much, but because the German Gothic look kind of adds to the haunted aesthetic. The Disneyland version does look good, but the Southern Bayou look doesn't really help it look haunted. It always looked too nice for my taste. And I don't blame the creators. It could be I just am not used to that style. Yes, you still see a carriage with a ghost horse, but we don't see the graveyard either. And the Florida version I felt was longer, with more scenes to see and more technology to admire. For instance, when you're walking down the halls to get to the Doom Buggies, you pass the portraits revealing their true scary nature, and the moving heads must follow you. But in the Florida versions, they're part of the ride, not the queue. And Little Leota is also seen as you exit the ride, while Little Leota in Florida is still part of the ride at the end. The Disneyland version had a neat trick where the stretching room was actually an elevator taking you down to the loading area, giving it more purpose than the Florida one, where it's really just a neat effect. Other than that though, it resembles the Florida attraction very closely, even though the Florida one was made afterward. But the one thing that California has that the Florida one doesn't have? The Hatbox Ghost. This ghost was part of the original mansion when it first opened, but it was removed after a few weeks after it opened and didn't return until 2015, when an updated animatronic was placed there. The idea of the Hatbox Ghost was for its head to disappear into the hatbox next to it, then reappear back in its place, using a clever lighting effect. This guy had quite a cult following after his disappearance, with him appearing up in a lot of souvenirs and merchandise, and a lot knowing about the character, but never actually seeing him until now. He even appears on some of the Florida versions shirts, and he's not even part of the ride. And it's been one of my personal goals that before I die, I get a Hatbox Ghost Nutcracker when I visit Disneyland someday. Now, the California version of Tower of Terror is a bit complicated. On one hand, it's closed now, replaced by Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. But we will still look at both versions for relevancy. The Tower of Terror at California Adventure had a great natural setting, as it was in California, and it helped reinforce the 30s Hollywood theme. There were also some structural differences like Haunted Mansion has, with this tower being a little more boxy and less pointed at the top. It also had 3 vehicle tracks instead of 2 to help maintain ride capacity. However, it also made the ride vehicles look smaller and more compact. And the ride is not a direct copy of the Florida version. In Florida, you begin by ascending to a floor where you see the 5 ghosts that disappeared calling for help. Then the room turns black and into stars. And then the window across the hall turns into the one from the Twilight Zone opening and shatters, adding some discomfort for the riders. The elevator ascends again to what may be the top, and it leaves the elevator shaft, moving through the Twilight Zone. Ooh. And stars align in front of you into elevator doors and open. We sit in complete darkness as our shaft stops moving. Then the drop sequence begins. The California version has different narration from Rod's, as it takes us to a floor with a wide mirror in front of us. Wave goodbye to the real world. It turns dark and blue, and we become ghosts in the mirror, and the lightning flows through the room. This emphasizes that we've just entered the Twilight Zone. Then we reach the floor with the 5 people who disappeared, like in the Florida version. And as the room turns black, and we see the black and white window shattering, that's when the drop sequence begins. There were some nice touches to this ride, such as during the drop sequence, it sounded like there were props falling and clanking, giving you the feeling that the elevator shaft was falling apart. The Florida version sticks out as the vehicle leaves the elevator shaft and enters one on the other side, as it plays against expectations and made it feel very otherworldly. Plus the narration was more chilling. The narration I've noticed in California was a little too deep for Rod, and it seemed like it was just trying to copy what the ghost host was trying to do with his sardonic attitude. Unfortunately though, it didn't last, as Guardians of the Galaxy opened in 2017. The idea of this ride is the collector has captured the Guardians and put them on display, but Rocket Raccoon escapes and asks the audience to help him free his friends. A lot of the people hated it when they closed the Tower of Terror, but personally I didn't mind it so much, since we still had the Florida version anyway. Don't get any ideas, Disney. The Guardians ride has a nice creative touch, even though the exterior looks like a cover-up. The queue is pretty cool with different Marvel exhibits, props, and the Rocket animatronic is pretty state-of-the-art. The drop sequence begins as you see Rocket cut the power to the building, and he plays music from Star-Lord's mixtape. It cuts in between different scenes of the Guardians escaping while going up and down at fast speeds. It's a decent update, being its own thing while also using the same ride layout. But the biggest issue is it's no longer the Tower of Terror, and the Hollywood Tower Hotel is no longer being presented here. The California version of Haunted Mansion stays true to the one in Florida, with no huge updates being in the way. Plus, it has the Hatbox Ghost. 2 points go to him. And since both rides have movies based on them, now we're looking at Best Movie. Now, to be fair, neither of these are the best candidates. The 2004 Haunted Mansion movie was disliked by lots of people, noting it didn't really stand out as a good flick and relied too heavily on Eddie Murphy, which a lot of people felt was miscast. But to be fair, you could argue that casting Eddie Murphy was the highlight of the movie, as not a lot of scary movies have black people in them. Usually it's them as side characters or them getting killed off first. Plus, it didn't really have as many jokes, there was a lot of CGI that wasn't really convincing, and the movie tried to follow the Pirates of the Caribbean success with the idea of trying to break a curse. Plus, a lot of the characters like the hitchhiking ghosts and Madame Leota weren't used to their full potential, it seemed. For years, there were rumors that Guillermo del Toro would remake it into a more scary movie centered on the Hatbox Ghost and the Bride, but plans seem to have fell through. In recent news, Disney announced there was going to be another attempt at the Haunted Mansion, but little to no details were given. Personally, I think a remake would be better if it was animated, like if they had the same people who did Frozen or maybe Coco. I think that would be a really good idea, as it would be filled with a lot of creativity, a lot of color, and it could also present a unique story on life and death. Disney kind of already accomplished a similar feat in Pixar using Coco, so I think this might be a good opportunity. Unfortunately, I'm certain this may never happen. Now, Tower of Terror has a bit of an advantage, as this movie came out first in 1997 as a TV movie. Actually, it was the first movie based on an attraction before Pirates of the Caribbean came out. It didn't follow the Twilight Zone theme like the attraction did, but instead was its own thing. It follows the ride's story pretty closely, with 5 people entering the elevator in the 1930s and them dying after a lightning strike. And a writer for a tabloid, played by Steve Guttenberg, explores the hotel to find answers with his niece, played by Kirsten Dunst. It's not really scary, as it kinda has the vibe of a Stephen King miniseries, but it still keeps your interest as you learn about the mystery surrounding the tower, including witchcraft, jealousy, and forgiveness. Yeah, it's cheesy, but the movie knew it was. Plus, it actually had the elevators falling towards the end of the ride. In addition, a lot of the movie was filmed at the location of the ride in Florida. Now that's what I call authentic. The TV movie may have been cheesy, but it still had an interesting story and characters, and it gave a lot of attention to the ghosts more than Haunted Mansion did. Point goes to the Tower of Terror. And now it's time for the final category. This is Best Ride. These attractions have different experiences, as the Haunted Mansion utilizes an Omnimover track which moves continuously for riders, while the Tower of Terror uses a state-of-the-art ride system where the vehicles are guided to venture in and out of the lifts through electric wires in the floor. Plus, you have to give them credit for not actually making riders stand in a real elevator, as people probably would have been too scared or even badly injured. The Haunted Mansion feels a little more like a house tour, as the Omnimovers don't move very fast, but very leisurely through the mansion. And we see great effects like the hidden paintings, the busts following you, the piano playing by itself, and Leota in her glass ball, the floating candle down the endless hallway, and of course, the ghosts in the ballroom and the graveyard, using the brilliant Pepper's Ghost effect. What's great about the Haunted Mansion is that its slow pacing actually allows you to take everything in, and there's a lot to see, especially in the graveyard scene. Each time you ride it, you always notice a new detail, like a different animal or a different ghost. With the Tower of Terror, it's more straightforward with its foreboding nature. The size and mass of the rooms get to you, and when you ascend in your lift, that feeling of anticipation builds as you're waiting for the drops to start. But it likes to take its time, showing you the ghosts and the Twilight Zone, building up the suspense. And it surprises you as you leave the shaft to the other elevator at the end, adding to the effect of entering a different dimension. And the drop sequences are not free falls. The ride vehicles are actually pulled down to give riders the feeling that they're floating out of their seats. It also has a randomized drop sequence, allowing for a different ride experience every time. You may get 6 drops, 7 drops, you might start falling, or start going up and then fall. It makes it a lot of fun. A lot of people might say that the Tower of Terror is better as it's more thrilling, it's faster, it's scarier, and therefore should win this round. But the biggest downside of the Tower of Terror is it's not a ride for everyone. There are a lot of people that don't like drop rides due to fears of heights or falling. And you also have to consider people with health issues that are not able to handle such thrills. And while there are some kids brave enough to ride it, there are a lot that may be too scared to ride it. This ride has a height requirement, whereas the Haunted Mansion does not. This is because it moves at such a leisurely pace. The ride vehicles are more accommodating to people of all shapes and sizes, and more kids are able to ride it as it's not too intense or very scary. A ride that is enjoyed by kids and adults is a big plus. I think the one downside to the Haunted Mansion is that the ride stops if someone is taking their time to get off or on, and you're stuck there for a long time. But Tower of Terror has a disadvantage, as if it breaks down, you have to wait for the ride to come down and to exit. I should know, it actually happened to me on my last trip. When the Haunted Mansion breaks down, it is easy for guests to get out and follow cast members to exit. Not to mention you can get a cool look behind the scenes tour of the ride. Even though Tower of Terror is faster and more thrilling, I think the Haunted Mansion is more accommodating, more enjoyable, and you're able to take in the great scenery around you. Point goes to the Haunted Mansion. And the winner is the Tower of Terror. Excuse me while I get into the proper theme. How's that even possible?
Perfect.
To be honest, I am a little surprised at the Tower of Terror 1, as I feel like I'm more of a fan of the Haunted Mansion than the Tower of Terror. But to be fair, there are a lot of reasons the Tower of Terror is better than the Haunted Mansion. It is more intense, it is a lot scarier and more thrilling. People always say that the Tower of Terror is like a sequel to the Haunted Mansion, and in many ways, they're right. It revisits the similar theme of a haunted building and taking it to the next level. But the Haunted Mansion will always be a beloved classic. It's kind of like comparing The Haunting to The Shining. There's always one you will love more than the other. There will always be one you love more than the other. But one thing is for certain. Both rides are a lot of fun. So, if you haven't been to Disney World yet, go and take a look for yourself.